Hello, everybody. My name is Ryunn Eldred, and I'm here with Razgriz, the BossFoss, and we would like to welcome you to the R&R podcast, a podcast that previously we stated would be releasing every Wednesday, and we are slowly grinding our bones to dust, trying to work to that. But
No, we're
we're,
pretty
we're
close because I think we recorded it third around there. Because we recorded it on your birthday, and then what was that? 7 days since then.
yeah,
Well, it's only now the 12th
yeah.
because so we technically were attempting to record this 1 week later.
We're trying, is
So
what we're
hey,
trying to
go
say.
us.
We're trying to be more regular with our podcast schedule for at least R&R.
Yeah,
Drinking
if
Corner
only
is
you
still
didn't
a
have a closing
dumpster fire.
shift.
Yeah. But we're here. It's
Hello?
great. Please don't leave yet.
Is it?
It is. I hope. I don't know. The pre-podcast anxiety is kicking in, but today we are in the spirit of Halloween in the month of October. I have a few predetermined topics to talk about as soon as we get through our little small talk portion, because honestly, the amount of time we get to actually talk to each other is a little. So, Rozzy the Grizzy, the Bossy Fossy, how you feeling? How are you? What's new?
Well, let's see. The last time we talked, I was dealing with the whole cat fiasco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So since then, kid you not, I have been sick and I've just been getting sicker. And I don't know, you could probably hear it now. It's definitely in my sinuses.
I
So
was gonna say you sound a little nasally.
both my wife and I are sick. Not super thrilled about that, but it's what can you do? Um, continue to try and work every day. I found out how valuable I am because I ended up taking Wednesday off, and my entire department fell apart.
That's always good.
There were so many people that came up to Katie and was saying, "Oh my God, is David okay? Like, he's not at school today. He's like, he's sick. Like, it's been gone 1 day. Like, he hasn't been hiding the fact he hasn't been feeling well, but like, literally, it's just 1 day."
David,
Like,
listen,
oh my
you
God. Like,
you are the Achilles of your department, okay?
I'm like, dude, I barely do my job. Like, I feel like I'm only doing the bare minimum because I don't know how to do my job.
Hey man, I'm trying to get into the same job you are, and if you don't know how to do your job, that scares me slightly because I definitely don't have this self-confidence to think I would do your job right because I barely do my own job right.
Well,
Both
so
this job and my job.
for my job, I mean, you Rune
Me,
know what my job is.
direct
Um,
camera stare.
yes, well, you.
You.
Um, I I'll tell you about my job when we're not being recorded.
Yes.
Sorry, I just pulled up houses in a different city. So I got a little distracted because it was the other tab over.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
yeah. Uh, there's there's a show named after the city. So it's the
Starts with E.
yeah, it's the state motto
Ecuador?
too.
Oh, Eureka?
Yeah,
There's a show called Eureka?
dude, look it up.
I will in my free time.
I mean, I'm talking right now, so go ahead and just pull it up, like side screen that.
Fine. Let me just
Also, I apologize for those of you watching. Like I said, I'm sick, so I got a runny nose, so I'm having to like wipe the snot as it's running out of my nose.
It ran for 6 years, did 5 seasons.
Hmm
Deputy United States Marshal Jack Carter stumbles upon Eureka while transporting a fugitive prisoner, his own rebellious teenage daughter Zoe, back to her mother's home in LA. When a faulty experiment cripples the sheriff of Eureka, Carter finds himself quickly chosen to fill the vacancy, despite not being a genius like most members of the town. Jack Carter demonstrates Wikipedia text under CCYBYSA left.
Anyway,
It sounds interesting.
yeah. Anyway, so not to get too distracted, to finish up my end, I'm sick, I'm working, and I'm sick. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning now.
Nice, nice. I guess this
What
would
about
be
you, sir?
well, um, so my birthday was a week ago when we did the last episode. Uh
Wonderful. And now let's get on to the topic of I'm
no,
kidding, guys. I'm kidding.
we
I'm kidding.
skip.
That's
That
a
is
little
essentially
call back to a previous conversation me and Ryunn were just having.
so to answer your question there, David, my like it's been really good. My birthday
Mhm,
weekend was last weekend when we went to go do the last podcast. Went and
mhm.
celebrated it up in Eureka with a friend of mine that I'm not gonna mention names of. For personal reasons, but it was a really wonderful time. We went to Trinidad Beach, which was my first time going there. It was phenomenal, very beautiful. It was a really clean beach. Um, the view was beautiful. The company was more than
Exceptional.
wonderful.
Mhm.
And then we went to this restaurant called the Dells, which is like a fancier Denny's. The food there was great. The food service, oh my God. Working in the food industry and having like customer service be one of the things we're looked at for our business. Like the Adele's restaurant had phenomenal fucking customer service.
That's great to hear,
Like
honestly.
phenomenal customer service. But we did that. We were going to catch a movie, but we ended up not watching the movie, which is this new like Demi Moore movie that looks really trippy and spooky. But like we sat there, we talked, we had a really good time. Like I love going up there and seeing her and her family. They're amazing people, and it's been like literally the best like month of my life going up to Eureka and back. The two or three times I've already done it. And I'm already like anticipating the next time to go up there too. Matter of fact, anticipating it so much that I'm already making plans to move up there, which I could actually adequately say that I do plan to move up there within the next like year or so.
That's great, man.
The sooner the better, but I want to find a job that's not working at the food industry business that I work at right now because I would like to have a big boy job doing big boy things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not saying that the job I have right now isn't a big boy job because I am a manager there, but
You need a job that gives you health care.
absolutely because I have partnership right now and I still got to pay part of that and I'm just like ugh. I miss the good old days of being in the foster system with Medi-Cal. But outside of that, one thing that's been going on with both YouTube channels is I've been trying to do Spooktober this last since October 1st to now on the personal channel. I have been working on Death Stranding, which I don't find to be a horror game. It's
I mean, it has some
it
elements, but
has
no, I wouldn't
horror
say it's a horror
elements.
game.
I wouldn't I did start Death Stranding too, even though I'm not in tandem with Whiskey and Bry anymore.
You said Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 2 is not a game yet.
My bad. I meant Dead Space too.
Oh, Dead
Even
Space
though,
2, that's a
yeah,
game.
yeah, that's the game. That's the game. But I'm not in tandem with Whiskey and Bry. I am working with him right now. Sorry, I'm looking at all the names and I realized that Whiskey and Bry is like right in the just curl up into a ball. There he is. There he is, right in the middle. Ugh. But he is working on bettering his Wi-Fi so he could go back to get away from the computer cords, cat. He is working on getting better Wi-Fi so he could go back to streaming the last like mission he has in Dead Space 1 to start Dead Space 2. So I'm just gonna start without him and then probably just wait a couple of months before we get to Dead Space 3.
Right.
In the group channel, I have been working on the Telltale Games Walking Dead Definitive series, which we just fit as of recording today. I am uploading the episode in which, spoiler alert, Lee dies. And then I
Oh,
have the bonus 400 days episode to make. And then I'll be started on season 2, which I'm already a little bit behind. Down.
hike.
But I'm already a little bit behind. I did decide that I'm going to be live streaming the games on Twitch instead of recording them just because they're about 2 hour long episodes each episode. And that
Mhm.
is a lot to just sit there and edit through and kind of like render, upload. It just all takes a long time. Whereas with Twitch, I could easily do these episodes one shot, go through the entire live stream. As long as I make sure the audio sounds good, it uploads great. And it uploads in half the time.
Right.
So just to be more time efficient with doing what I'm doing, because uploading to both YouTube channels and trying to do at least one video a day per channel is a little tedious.
Yeah.
Granted, I do have my laptop back again, which means I could actually do double uploads, one on the laptop, one on the desktop, which is really nice.
Yeah. Wait till you get to a place with better internet. It's just
Hmm.
gonna soar, man. It's just
It's
gonna
gonna
soar.
soar. Soar so good. I feel like we have had way too long of an introduction.
I mean, we're
We're
shooting the breeze.
bullshitting.
We're
We're
bullshitting.
bullshitting.
Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. We went into this podcast not actually having like a really set topic. We
But
did
that's
have
how
something we were
every
wanting to talk
podcast.
about, but like um when
I've
it
had a
comes to the
stressful day today and I feel like venting because I
no,
fucking
so
God.
what I'm noticing with the R&R podcast is we we're not going with, oh yeah, we're doing challenges, we're doing these trivia things. This is just me and you finally at the end of the week because we don't ever talk during the rest of the week. I love the fact that the cutout got all smoky, but everything else didn't. Um, this is me and you actually getting a chance to talk to each other as well
Yeah.
because our busy life schedules, it's just really hard
I
to actually
realize
talk.
why you're showing your shirt off this entire time.
What? What are you talking about?
You've been sitting there going like this, going like,
Yeah, no,
like
no, I'm just like
emphasizing this
straightening the shirt, you know, drink Dr. Pepper,
Bubba Gump Shrimp and Co.
Bubba Gump, shrimp, and get yourself a Dr. Pepper.
No, it's like I'm stressful for
Not
reasons
sponsored, but
outside of
if
work.
they want to sponsor, I would love some Dr. Pepper. Okay,
But yeah,
anyway,
this is our chance to just really catch up and talk throughout the week because by the time you get off work, I am going to work. So our schedules are just vastly different until the weekend. And then me, I'm just really bad at texting people throughout the day because while you're at work, I'm typically sleeping. And then when you're sleeping, I'm typically at work or just recording.
yeah.
But to speak on the topic of today, since we are in the month of October, and as I was mentioning, the Spooktober like series that I run on both channels during the month of October, which is primarily horror games, which I wanted to sit down and talk to you about because this year specifically, we've had quite a few horror games come out already in the month of October. We've
Mhm.
had the Dead Rising Deluxe remaster, or however they emphasize it,
Dead Rising, yeah, I think it's deluxe remaster or something like that.
which
I,
technically came out at the end of last month, but I'm gonna rope it into the beginning of October
sure.
releases. We've had the Until Dawn remake,
Hmm.
and then most recently we had the Silent Hill 2 remake.
Is it out? Because I
It
think
is out.
it's
It came out on the 8th.
Not to fact check you immediately, but
The only reason why I know exactly what day it came out was because I was gonna buy myself that game for my brother's birthday. And it was a huge joke I had with him about it. But
I kept wanting to
again,
write Saints Row. I'm like, it's not Saints Row. What is the name of this?
Silent Hill.
Yes, I know it's Silent Hill. Thank you, sir.
But again, with both YouTube channels, we're running horror games. We got I almost said Silent Hill. We got Telltale's The Walking Dead on the
Mhm.
group channel, NerdgazmicGoodfellas, which you can see the logo behind David. On my channel, I have Dead Space 2
You
and
can?
then some other ones. Yeah,
Where?
right there.
Right there.
Um, as well as Dead Space 2, there are some other things I was wanting to bring in. We do have Alan Wake 2, which is a psychological horror. We have Control, which is supposed to be a psychological horror, but I feel like such a badass in that game. I don't get scared of anything because I just literally force push.
Oh God, what game was it? There, uh, I think me and you talked about the state of play last
Yeah,
podcast.
last podcast was the
There,
state of
there
play.
is a horror VR game that is coming out that like I noped out of like the idea of immediately, and I
Ooh.
cannot for the life of me. I think it was the clay one. It was like Midnight Walk or something like that,
Huh.
and it was all like the entire game is like clay. It's a VR game. No, I'm not. I wouldn't. Not gonna do that. Um, there is a horror game that I've had downloaded on my PlayStation and I've been neglecting to play.
What's that?
It's The Message. Silent
Oh,
Hill's The
Silent Hill,
Message.
The Message.
Yes.
So, I have that downloaded on my PlayStation as well.
All I've been told is it's a psychological horror, and I've been warned by other people that it's going to end up triggering previous traumas.
Yes. So I've had the same warning, and it was actually by the little guy right here on the wall behind me. Again, I forgot to mention this, but you could listen to this podcast on any of your podcast listening services like Spotify, iTunes, and all that. But you could also watch it visually and see what I'm referencing, pointing to references, all that, our beautiful, lovely faces. But Little Crow, my younger foster brother, is the one that told me to be careful playing Silent Hill the Message because there is a huge suicide warning. And to talk spoilers right now, because this will be a game I do, because, do, because I like Silent Hill.
Damn
I
it, I was
love
trying to keep it together. I'm like, he said doo doo. That's so funny. But oh my god, dude.
I love the fact that I got you to break on that because it's not often that I ever get you to break with something dumb like that.
It's the fact that I was going to comment on it, and in my head I'm like, nah, that's stupid, David. Don't don't mention that.
I know in my head I was like, don't do the joke. But then I was like, do the joke.
Do the joke.
But Silent Hill The Message, very beautiful game from what Brian has told me. It takes up to 4 hours,
Hmm.
depending on if you try to 100% it or not. It is like PT in the terms of like the game itself is a maze. There is a creature that hunts you down and like stalks you throughout the thing. But the whole game in Silent Hill fashion is the character dealing with suicide
Right.
and bullying. So if you were bullied, ow, this cat is scratching my back, but he's calming down. If you experienced bullying or had suicidal tendencies, thoughts, etc., there is a nice big health warning for the game. But I do recommend if you don't want to play it, at least watch it. You are not getting my mac and cheese cat. You have food literally right behind me on the plate. A whole bowl of food, cat. Say hi to the cat. Say hi to the general population. I
Its
stole
head is not being popped. There you go.
I stole your cat, David.
You did steal my cat.
But I highly recommend people watch it on YouTube or experience the game yourself. It's great. And it brought Silent Hill back to the roots of what Silent Hill was after, the not so successful games like Downpour and everything.
So when it comes to it, not just Silent Hill, but like horror games in general, I I don't care for horror games. Like I don't play video games to be scared or for the stress. But and we've encountered this on multiple occasions. Horror games sometimes I don't react to.
Yes, like watching you do Blair Witch.
Yeah, I hated it, but like I wasn't reacting to the scares. Now,
You
um
playing Blair Witch. Huh. Me playing Blair Witch. Oh fucking god damn it! Oh, what the fuck is that?
there's the game that came out not too long ago, and I think it's From the Depths. It's the game where
The
you're
oil
on
rig game.
the oil rig. I played that start to finish, which
Yes,
I'm
I
very proud
talked
of.
to you
And
while
that
you played it.
yeah, which also I got it. You good?
Yeah, I thought I had double echo on your voice, but it's just my headphones are really good.
Weird. Um,
Weird.
I got an achievement because I beat the game. Start like I said, start to finish, and I beat the game. Though I kind of suspected how it was going to end, which made me a little bit sad. Um, but I thought I was like moving pretty quick through the game. I didn't realize that I wasn't sprinting for majority of the game, so I got the achievement for not sprinting for more than 10 minutes in my entire playthrough, like combined.
Just just walking like, huh? God, everything's kind of going to crap here.
Well, like even
Oh,
being
that's
chased,
that's horrifying.
like I was avoiding the enemies and I'm just like walking and I'm like, "Oh, I'm being chased. Let me just
You're you're being chased. You're
casually
like,
stroll."
oh no, he's gonna get me. What will he possibly do to me? Ah,
Uh
it's Big Dick
but
Randy. No.
but that being said, like that was a phenomenal game. I don't know if you've had a chance to play it.
I have not played it yet, but it is in my repertoire of games to play.
I thoroughly enjoyed playing it, and I loved the voice acting because it just felt more genuine.
Hmm.
It's like a, and I'm going to get uh lit up for this, so I'm not even going to say which country I think it is. I know it's somewhere over in the UK general area. It's one of those countries, but I'm not going to say who I think the accent is because I don't want to get canceled.
Cancel
Also,
culture just
it's
attacking you
been a
for
few
not
months
knowing
since
your
I played,
original
so
dialect.
it's been a few months since I played as well, so I don't remember. Um, but no, thoroughly enjoyed that. Silent Hill terrifies me. Like
Yes. So I am in the same boat as you.
I played the psychological horror game that everybody's like, dude, this is super scary, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, there's a few moments that I'm like, all right, that got me a little bit. Like I jumped a little bit, but it wasn't so much a jump scare game as like you're panicking trying to get off this oil rig as literally everything's going wrong. And then Silent Hill, I guess it's just the reputation of what I know it can do
So
that it's just like an instant. I'm not wanting to deal with that.
to to absolutely sidebar you here. Did
Same
you
thing with Resident
experience
Evil.
did you experience PT? Wait, same thing with Resident Evil?
Resident Evil games I struggle playing because I'm like, I
But you
know that they
kicked
have a
ass
reputation. Oh,
at
hang on, hey,
Village.
I know. Uh, Resident Evil games have a reputation for being horror games. Oh, and that's the other VR game. I refuse to play Village in VR.
I want to
Uh,
play Village in VR. I just don't want to
I
do that
I own it.
one mission in VR.
I own it in VR and I refuse to play it. I know I can I literally beat Village before you, and then while talking with you, sped run the entire game to get the
In
achievement for beating it under like 3 hours or something like that.
under 4 hours. world's greatest dad or whatever.
I don't
Our
remember
world's
pitching.
fastest dad. Dude. But onto my sidebar. Did you experience PT? Whether it was by playing or by watching?
I okay. Through watching for sure, and then through playing also, yeah. I played it on Kyle's PlayStation.
Hmm. I played it on Roblox.
Who did I play? I played it on somebody's PlayStation. I just don't remember who. Or it might have been like a knockoff one, and I just didn't realize it.
So
But I did experience it through, I believe it was Markiplier.
So I watched Mark, Jack, Pewds. I watched a plethora of people play. I played a version of it on Roblox, which you would think for a kids game it wouldn't have been scary, but it still held the same atmosphere and everything. And what I like about Silent Hill, especially PT, and then what I have been seeing of the second game's remake, is that it doesn't rely on jump scares and or freakishly horrific monsters, even though the monsters in Silent Hill are freakishly horrific. It's the atmosphere. It was the simple fact that with PT, every time you went through the loop, subtle changes happened at first.
Right,
It was like you first ran through the loop, nothing out of the ordinary. Second time you ran through the loop, the pictures are kind of watching you, or like there's now more rain, or you could, as you're walking past the window, you just see a silhouette of Lisa, like just sitting there twitching
right.
outside, or like something would drop from the ceiling and hang itself, or it was just a bunch of different stuff. And then as you realize that you are being kind of stalked through this loop and things are changing and you got blood on the walls warning you with stuff, the fucking fetus. The thing that creeped me out more than like Lisa was the talking fetus in the sink.
Or when it
I
says,
think
look behind you. I
yes.
hated that.
So what I really loved about PT was watching how the demo was made. So from the very get-go, she is behind you the entire time.
I'm listening.
No matter how you move, like you walk and then you just turn, she turns behind with you until the set moment she's going to scare you. And it was just fascinating. And that was just the demo. It was literally just a playable teaser to showcase the fact that Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Norman Reedus were working together on a Silent Hill, which super pissed off they never made it, but I am extremely happy that Death Stranding became the baby of that game.
Ah, baby. That's not
Haha.
correct.
Haha.
So we
But
still got a game with Norman Reedus and his fetus, but
yeah,
wasn't the Silent Hill.
it wasn't a talking fetus in the bathroom sink.
Might have still been talking though.
I mean, a little bit of cooing and giggling here and there. But what I really am looking forward with the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I'm really upset that I didn't have the funds to kind of buy it like I was planning to on the 8th, but waiting in all due time, I'll get it when I'm well and ready to start working on that game, is the fact that I've played the original Silent Hill 2. It was the first game I played in the Silent Hill series, followed by Silent Hill 4, which
Right.
was the one where you're stuck in an apartment building. But with 2, the map used the fog as the loading thing to load like the map as you moved around. I have seen like gameplay of the remake, and it is so stunningly beautiful. And like it is still extremely atmospheric to where it's like the horror doesn't come from like literal the jump scares and the monsters. It comes from the tension in the quite literal atmosphere. And then I've seen some really funny as fuck shit too. Like there the part where James is walking through this school. There's this loud bang and it jump scared the guy playing the game. But right after it jump scared the guy playing the game, James is like walking and it has the third person over the camera and he goes like right as this sound cues, and it was the funniest freaking video ever, and I died. I think I shared it in the group chat because it made me laugh so much. But
Did
I
you
mean,
share? I didn't. A majority. I'm gonna confess. Majority of the things you post in the group chat, I'm like, oh yeah, Tim posted something. Whatever.
it's okay. I'm pretty sure everybody does that. But I mean, outside of Silent Hill 2, there was the Dead Rising remake, which I was gonna buy in the like not this check that I had, but the check before it. But instead, I opted to get Mortal Kombat 1 Chaos Reigns, which is still good. But
Right.
parts of me wish I would have gotten Dead Rising more because I would still be enjoying Dead Rising now, unlike of me going through the Mortal Kombat DLC in less than 4 hours. But before I move on to the chunk of our discussion, which I have something pulled up for that, I want to open the floor for you,
Sorry,
David. Kind of
I
just
just watched
talk.
the video.
What would you say your absolute favorite horror game you've played in like all time would have been? Would have been, even if you didn't finish it. Like, what would you say it would have been, and why is it your favorite?
So, like I said, I don't play horror games.
Yeah,
Uh, I I own them. I don't really play them. Um, but then it comes down to what do I actually classify as a horror game? Because in a way, Doom is a horror game,
Doom. Yeah,
but I don't consider that a horror game. That's just an action thriller thing. Well, that's not actually a
Doom,
thriller.
Doom, Doom.
Action. Um, I mean, Village, honestly, like it drew me in. I hated the dollhouse level, but it still drew me in, and I finished it. That was one of the first like Resident Evils that I had ever finished. It was actually, I take it back. It was the first Resident Evil that I've ever finished. So much, and I enjoyed it so much that I actually did the speed run just to do a double like middle finger to you of like, oh, in the amount of time it took for you to do one run, I've done two.
And it was a speed run with a record.
Yeah, uh, and then I did the DLC.
Oh, Shadow of Rose.
Yeah, I went through, and when that released, like I picked it up and I actually like played and beat it.
I never actually played it.
I enjoyed it. It added an extra depth, which I appreciated. Um, yeah, but whether or not I would say that's my favorite, I'm gonna say for just sorry, I can see the cat going like right behind your head.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Resident Evil Village, though there's a lot of good contenders. Um, as mentioned, the From the Depths, which I don't think that's actually the title because I think there's another game
No,
that's called From
I think
the Depths.
it's still from the depths.
Still wakes the deep. Still wakes the deep.
Still wakes the deep. I was literally just about that.
That
That
sounds
is it, because I was literally just about to pull it up because I know I own it. I just haven't played
yeah.
it yet.
Still wakes the deep. Um, and then of course, as you know, I was going through and actually playing all the Resident Evils. I had to stop when I suddenly didn't own any of them anymore.
I
So
feel you on that. There was
there's
some games I was playing too that I immediately had to stop recording because
I'm
I
like,
just didn't
apparently
own
I
them
don't own that.
anymore.
Hmm. Um, God, there was another one. There's some DLCs for games that are classified as horror. Like, I cannot stress enough how much I thoroughly loved Outer Wilds. The whole 22-minute cycle, and then they added the DLC, which was it was actually a horror DLC, which you were able to break. It's been out long enough that it's okay to say it. You can break it, in which if you take the lantern that you use to get into this dream world, if you set it down and walk away from it, you will then be out of the bubble that it forms, and you can just see the algorithm that's running the simulation that you're going into. So
Hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool. Um, I was casually thinking about trying to pick up Silent Hill 2 for you, but it's a PlayStation exclusive, and PlayStation doesn't allow me to buy gifts. Not sure why that is.
Does PlayStation not allow you to buy gifts?
I don't think so. I've never seen it. I'll look again when I wake up the wife in a minute, but uh, yeah. So to answer your question and wrap up my little side tangent, I'm going to say Resident Evil Village for right now.
Nice. I am going to take a quick intermission period. Okay, so to touch base, now that we're back from intermission, to touch base on your like horror game with the Resident Evil and you being like you don't want to do Village in VR. I want to do Village in VR because I have 7 in VR. And it's really funny because I find 7 less scary in VR. I've made it further in 7 in VR than I have on console.
See, 7 doesn't seem like it'd be that like as scary to do in VR compared to Village.
Well, okay. So what do you find scarier about Village than you do 7?
So with Village, at least the I don't know if you guys have seen the gameplay of Village, but the part that I played, and this is gonna make me sound really sad in VR because I've beaten the game. In VR, it's when you're going just after the crash and you're walking through the pitch black woods, and I'm now controlling the flashlight, and I can hear things, something move over here, and I'm like, okay, because I have the PlayStation AirPod
Mhm.
like ear pods in, which are blocking out the rest of the sound.
To be fair, I give you that.
And I knew that one of those stupid freaking crows is not dead. And so I'm casually going through and I'm like poking at him. And then I had walked past it and it started to go off. And that's when all hell broke loose. And literally, it just sounded like everybody was running at me. And I just had a panic attack and just dropped to the ground. I'm like, nope, fuck it. I know, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And I've never gone back. But I own it.
I
Actually, matter of fact,
really,
I have the steelbook case for it.
I do too. It's behind me on that chair.
Mine's uh behind me underneath the TV. I'm trying to remember. Everything's still moved around. We still have boxes. I wanted to have my shelf up somewhere for like my collectibles, and I haven't done
I
that yet.
was gonna unpack in this house, but being the fact that I literally just moved into this house and I'm already planning to move to another town, I'm just not gonna unpack. I got all my essentials out. I'm just gonna keep all my stuff boxed up, all my collectibles boxed up and ready to move the next time I move. Since I
Yeah,
am planning at least moving 1 to 2 more times.
I will say that. Oh, I have a glasses cleaner here. I didn't know that. Um, I've been finding more of my collectible stuff, though. There's still a lot of collectible stuff in Los Molinos,
Mm,
which is where everything's in storage.
yeah. So for
Um,
me, I think 7 is scarier than 8 only because it is in a smaller setting. I think the vast openness of Village kind of made the game less scary for me, excluding the fucking dollhouse section. Because
yeah,
that is the
I'm definitely
only
not looking forward to
section,
that.
that is the only section I do not look forward to in VR. Same thing within 7. I don't look forward to fighting Marguerite in VR because I am arachnophobic and she is a giant fucking spider. which is also why I don't want to play my favorite Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4, in VR, because once I get to the military island, you have to fight a bunch of, or actually, it's in Ramon's castle that you fight a bunch of freaking spiders. Ugh. Hate spiders with a burning passion. But
I
to
feel that. That's why I play a game called Kill It with Fire.
I have a morbid
Except
curiosity
for,
for that game.
except for, I played the game only in like just with a controller, and then I found out it was a VR game too.
I don't think I'd be able to do the VR game.
Uh it's definitely been a struggle, and I had an arachnophobic person play the game, and we're all watching on the TV, which is one thing that I like about the PlayStation VR is we're able to actually see what he's seeing. And you can see the spider's leg sticking out from underneath the toast. And he picks up the toast. And I had just warned him. I said, "Hey, just so you know, this level introduces jumping spiders." And I said, "And I'm pretty sure there's one on the other side of that toast." And he goes, "Oh, there's no spider here." And he turns the toast. Oh, sorry, my hand is. He picks up the toast, and he turns the toast straight towards him. And of course, spider spotted. Spider jumps straight up, right into his face. I wish we were recording it, man, because his reaction was iconic.
What okay, was it as iconic as when I was playing the inpatient and you
It
came in
was
and scared me while I was playing that?
he didn't drop to the ground, but he was pretty terrified.
For those of whom who haven't heard the infamous story of me playing the Until Dawn prequel Inpatient, David here decided to be a dick when I was living with him and saw that I was playing a VR game, and he creepily crept into the house and then scared the ever living crap out of me to where I
No, I
dropped
did
on the
not sneak
ground.
into the house. Because the way that it was set up, I had my parents had a giant living room, and it was the entryway. I had very loudly walked into the house and was talking to you, and you didn't hear me. You weren't hearing me. So I kind of giggled, and I grabbed the door and I slammed the door as hard as I could, and that's what you heard, and that scared you. And it, oh my,
So
that was on camera though.
for my perspective, as I have the giant headset and VR goggles on, I was being introduced to the Wendigo for the first time when he slammed the door.
Yes. Anyway, back to
Timing,
Spooktober.
timing.
Timing.
So for my all-time favorite horror game, which I honestly got to agree with you, to pick one is really hard because I have three that come to mind like right off the bat, hands down definitive, which would be The Evil Within,
Of course.
the first one,
Right.
Dead Space, the first
All
one,
right. Sure. Mm-hmm.
and then Alan Wake.
Oh, really? I was expecting Resident Evil 4.
No, so as much as I love Resident Evil, I find the very first Alan Wake a very beautiful example of what psychological horror is from the story, but the gameplay aspect relies too much on kind of jump scare of enemies just randomly popping out at you, which is
Yeah,
why I won't say Alan Wake is number one just for
that's
that
fair.
reason. But the story itself deserves to put it in the place to be a contender because the whole narrative of the game, if you haven't experienced Remedy's Alan Wake yet, I highly recommend it. Because if you follow along to the story or do what I did and just buy the fucking book, it's beautiful. Um, Evil Within is on the list because it is made by Shinji Mikami, who is the original creator of Resident Evil. And it is, again, another psychological horror that, even though it is an action horror game, the game, even though it has a lot of really huge set action pieces, at no time puts you in the perspective of playing an actual action game
Right.
because you never have enough ammo.
Mm-hmm.
you have to be extremely pick and choose your battles, and it's just psychologically it's horrific. And Reboned Laura is a human spider, and she's not the only human spider in the game, so that just absolutely petrified me as well. And then my other option was Evil Within Dead Space, which Dead Space is horror all around, but I think the story and how much the game tries to tell you that Nicole is dead from the very start of the game to the very ending of the game, and literally being in the perspective of a silent protagonist that is going through like an immense amount of trauma and horror. And it's not only is it the atmosphere of seeing the issue more. God, I need to pick one. Dead Space or Evil Within?
Evil Within probably, because I know you've been more hyped about that than uh
So
like
both games.
you've been trying really hard to finish Evil Within too.
So yeah, Evil Within is definitely going to be my breadwinner for it because it's the game that took me the longest to get through because I had to
Right.
start it 3 times,
Hmm.
but I've recorded it twice out of those 3 times to try to get a playthrough on my channel. And this year, I actually was able to get out, not Alan Wake, Evil Within and Dead Space both done this year.
Hmm.
So, which is why they're the two most freshest in my list. But I think where Dead Space has the good atmosphere, the good story plot of diving into insanity and just everything. Evil Within I like better because one, Shinji Mikami, I love his work, but it was a psychological horror game that was like a roller coaster ride, and it was
Right.
fun.
Hmm.
Because even though it's not by any means a game that gets you guessing on like what's gonna happen, like the whole plot twist that Nicole was really dead all along, but you just didn't see the clues. The game is in your face with what is happening. You are a detective who went to Beacon Mental Hospital. There is a patient with supernatural abilities. Will you stop turning your head and staring at me? All right. Stop it. Stop it.
I do what I want. You can't tell me what to do.
But it was like, even in the calmest points of Evil Within, there is anxiety. Whereas Dead Space, there is no calm points, and you're in a constant state of being overran by necromorphs. There is genuine moments of where there is nobody out to kill you. There's nothing bad happening. You're just in a fucked up place. You could
Right.
catch your breath, but you don't know if you want to catch your breath because you're literally seeing the world through the eyes of a sociopath,
Right.
and everything is twisted and demented. There is just so much psychological stuff going on in the game that it was at every single moment you're just analyzing everything from what the surrounding this like just the surrounding area and the level layout is trying to tell through a story of itself to the characters, the enemies. Everything had a purpose and story,
Hmm.
which was just phenomenal. It's good. It's good. But Evil Within 1, definitely my favorite horror game of all time.
Yeah, I
Now,
didn't care for it.
now to
Sorry.
get
I'm only saying that just to mess with Rome. It is a good game. I think I played like the first level and then I don't actually own the game, so
so I am going to right here. I'm going to pull this up as soon as it lets me. There we go. Do you see it?
yeah, I see it.
All right. So I have here pulled up IGN's 25 most terrifying games of this generation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go
Oh
down
my
this
God, I beat
list.
Prey. I totally forgot that I beat Prey.
You did beat Prey.
I did beat Prey. Okay, sorry. Wait, Tim, why are you black and white?
Oh, no.
Hey, are you, dude? I swear your camera is currently in black and white.
No, I'm good. I got color.
The only color I'm seeing, kid you not, is from the gorillas and from your eyes, but the rest of you looks like you're black and white. That's so weird. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
We're gonna go through this list of 25 games, horror games of this generation. We're both going to pick 5.
Pick five. All right. Can we
From the
comment?
5.
Can we comment on them as they come up?
Yes.
Okay.
Once we hit 1, we're both gonna pick 5 games, and then from the 5 games we both pick, we're gonna choose the top 3.
Okay.
But
Boom.
at no point in time will we tell each other what our 5 games are.
I guess I gotta write this down.
Yes. I am opening a notepad to do this too. And everybody listening and or watching at home to this extremely hectic podcast, you do the same. Let's see if we could get some horror games to match up here. Thank you for the bitch there, David. But to start off with 20 IGN's 25th entry, Observer. I have personally never played Observer.
No, I've seen it. I have not played it.
But
Let's see.
apparently it's made by
Layers
the
of Fear
people who did.
developer.
Yep,
Oh,
you read it.
Layers of Fear developer Bloober team stepped away from its usual psychological horror for Observer, a mind
And
bender set in a cyberpunk dystopia. The result is a well realized concoction of mind tricks that will have you slowly questioning the reality of the game world.
all right, then we got Echo. Echo may not be your typical horror game, but its main hook, being hunted by clones of the playable character who use your playstyle against you, creates a constant sense of unease and a moment to moment tension as you question every move you make. I've never heard of that game.
Yeah, and it was called Echo, right?
Yep, you got this one?
Yeah. So, Anatomy. Coming in at under an hour per play, though. Anatomy makes the most of each moment, guiding you through a barely visible house of horror. Developer Kitty Horror Show told Slate, a jump scare is when you attack the player, a dread scare is when they have to do something even if they don't want to. And the dread scare is what Kitty Horror Show deploys to great effect in Anatomy.
Interesting. So the second game on this list that I recognize, which to bring back Silent Hill, Bloober is actually the people who worked with Konami to make the Silent Hill 2 remake. Bloober team has a knack for distorting reality, and the ever shifting home of Layer of Fear's mad artist is that distortion and its most effective. While its tricks become more predictable and therefore less scary as you progress, Layers of Fear hints impressive horror heights in its opening hour.
Yeah. All right. We talked about Prey. So, Prey, when an everyday object could be a murderous shape shifting blob of black goo, it's hard to ever feel safe in the world of Prey. With its constant threat of mimics, occasional jump scares, and head spinning sci fi story, Prey succeeds as one of the generation's best psychological horrors.
Stories Untold. Stories Untold is a fresh take on the decades old text adventure. There's nothing in the realm of monsters or jump scares here. Stories Untold succeeds in its underlying psychological horror, thanks to the smart writing and puzzle design that will keep you engaged through its 4 connected stories.
Soma.
So, Soma here is what Zoshimoshi or Logan keeps recommending me to do for the channel because this right here is actually his favorite horror game.
So, I have actually played Soma.
Oh,
Um, I didn't beat it, but I played through a good portion of it, I think. Soma's atmospheric horror and occasional jump scares work to great effect in its underwater research facility. However, it's the existential horror, the bleak look into the potential future of humanity and AI that makes it stand out as one of the generation's most frightening and thought provoking games. But I think they misspelled thought.
Hmm. Amnesia, a machine for pigs. Amnesia, a machine for pigs, trades in the jump scares of its predecessors for a slower, dread filled journey through the eyes of a wealthy industrialist, Oswald Mundus. A Machine for Pigs is not the Dark Descent follow up some expected, but it's nonetheless successful in its more personal story and haunting world.
Bloodborne. Again, never played this one, though I've been told it's a great game. Bloodborne may be billed as one of the generation's best action RPGs, but it's also a masterful take on both survival and gothic horror. Through its storytelling, world design, monster design, and the constant threat of consequential death, Bloodborne is one of the most tense and terrifying experiences you'll find on the PS4.
Yomawari, The Long Night Collection. Please turn off all lights and focus only on this screen. A prompt reads before the beginning of Midnight Shadows, one of the two bundled games in the Long Night Collection. It then asks if you promise not to look away, to which you must select yes. Though we doubt it's a promise every player will be able to keep, don't let its cute style fool you. These games are skin crawling in their atmosphere and design. Beautiful, haunting, and occasionally upsetting, Yomawari's expertly juxta. I have no idea how you would pronounce that word. Childlike art and adult themes.
Uh, we are 10 of the uh, games through. I just want to emphasize that this is not our wording. We are, of course, reading IGN's post. So if you are watching, you can see exactly what we are commenting on. For those of you who are listening, I just want to reiterate that when we're doing the descriptions of these games, we are reading IGN's words. So they are their words, not ours. We are not taking their words, I promise. Go. So, speaking of Little Nightmares, number 15. Like Yomawari, Little Nightmares can't be taken at face value. As the pages of this cartoonish storybook style adventure turn, its grotesque character design and gruesome varieties of death are revealed. Tense chase sequences add to create a memorable, relatively family-friendly horror experience.
So with this game here, I actually did play and B. I played it for my mom back when. Oh no, I didn't mean to play the video. No, I did play this in front of my mom and beat it in one session of just playing, and it was pretty fun. Wouldn't really say scary, but yeah. Number 14, Until Dawn. Until Dawn possesses all the best and worst qualities of a B grade horror movie: camp, gore, death, interpersonal tension, cheesy dialogue, a corny plot, and overused jump scares. It's not everybody's cup of horror, but it's good fun, and the closest thing you will find to a playable version of a cabin in the woods.
All right, number 13 on their list is The Last of Us. The disturbing nature of The Last of Us is infected, namely the clickers and their awfully gravelly groans, alone would have earned it a spot on our list. However, it's the human element of Naughty Dog's masterpiece, remember David, that provides the real post-apocalyptic horror. Yes, The Last of Us was a last-gen game, but its stellar remastered version, well, we've allowed it on our list. Feel kind of called out. They said my name.
Yeah, David, remember?
No, I've never played.
All right, so we got Doki Doki Literature Club. More than any game on this list, it's hard to discuss what makes Doki Doki Literature Club so unnerving without spoiling it. The best horror games keep you on edge after you've stopped playing, and few games do that as well as Doki Doki. Let's take a quick minute here to talk about Doki Doki, because I never played it. I never watched it get played, but I heard that the game acted as like I don't want to say a virus or anything, but the character that it obviously shows right here possesses
For
the game.
so so for those of you listening, on screen right now is a picture of Monica, Monica's character. Um, do you want me to actually spoil? I mean, the
Yeah,
game's been out for a while,
spoil it. It's been out for
so
so long and it has so many different versions of the game. I should have played it at some point.
so the game starts off just like any visual novel like thing. It's like a dating sim, I think, is what it started off feeling like. So as you're uh sorry, the bottom text was throwing me off there. As you're playing, you're going through and you're noticing that your character is kind of ignoring your neighbor who's been your friend forever. And finally she's just not responding to anything. So you go over to her house and discover that she has killed herself. Granted, she was starting to act a little like weird, like more depressive than she normally does. But you discover that she kills herself, and then the game breaks and it glitches, and it kicks you back to the main menu. But now, um, the character is she's not there anymore at the main menu, like it's glitched out, and it starts the game over, and now it's reintroducing you to the literature club. And when you try to mention the character's name, the game glitches again, and it's as the game is going, it's glitching more and more, and it's killing off each of the characters, and each of them is uh like having their own like quality just like turned up to 11, to where one of them she gets possessive of you and then she ends up stabbing herself. Another one, you kind of force yourself upon her, which is like really messed up and not cool, but it, it's like the character that you're playing as is doing things that you necessarily are not wanting it to do, and it finally leads to it's just Monica. The entire game is now gone. She has actually been the one manipulating everything, and she has erased all the other characters in the game, like physically erased them from the game. So if you looked at the files, the character files are all missing. It's just Monica's file. And now it's a scene of her just sitting in front of you because she's massively in love with you and just self-aware. And the way you get past this is you have to go into the files of the game and you have to delete Monica from the game because Monica was never originally supposed to be in the game.
Yes, because isn't Monica? So the one thing I've heard about the game is this whole game is a setup for another game
Yes,
that the
another game
studio
which we've
was working
never
on.
gotten, but we still might end up getting it. But yes, this whole game was alluding to this other game or other experience, which I think, if I'm
That
not mistaken,
Monica is from.
well, they're all actually in the other game, and it's weird. I can't. I'm not perfectly describing this. I strongly encourage you guys to watch somebody to play it. You don't necessarily need to play it because it will. It's not appropriate game. It looks like it's an appropriate game, very much not though. So, I believe this one's mine to read, right?
Yep.
All right. Again, IGN's words. Number 11, Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's built a cult following off its effective jump scares. While simple in its design, its success is perhaps best attributed to its passive approach to gameplay. You're not exploring an abandoned asylum, navigating a haunted house, or even hunting monsters. You're sitting and waiting for the danger to come to you. And I agree with that. That is the original game was absolutely terrifying for that.
Don't you have a funny VR story about FNAF?
Do I?
Yeah, I remember you like just happened to lean over and get jump scared because you're like picking up the remote. It
I do not recall this.
was when Help Wanted first released.
I mean, I got jump scared a lot in that game. So
All right, so my
we're gonna move
turn.
on because I don't remember.
So, The Forest, a game that I've actively been trying to get everybody to jump in on. We might now do it on PlayStation though. The forest drops, or rather crashes, you into a lush, serene woodlands, complete with bright greens and warm sunlight. Then come the cannibals, and the serenity of the forest turns to heart pumping terror. A thoughtful AI system that prevents enemies from blindly attacking, keeps you on your toes, and makes the scares that much more effective when they choose to strike. I have jumped in to record this video like 4 different times with both Whiskey and Bry and Kortikowski Plays and Mr. Retro on PC. And I will say the AI for The Forest, and I'm really hoping another game will be on here because the AI in that game too. But nothing is more unnerving than when you're like building your base and you happen to just like look up and you can see the like cannibals in the tree line just watching you, studying you. And if you actually play on single player, they bring that a step further by the cannibals waiting to attack you. And when you fall asleep for the first time, they actually kidnap you,
Hmm,
which is really cool. It's something you don't get to experience in multiplayer, unfortunately. But
interesting.
the forest is really good. I love it, and I would love to be able to do a playthrough with everybody because it's one of those games.
So, the brief quietness and laughing is we just saw what number 9 and actually number 8 is. So, number 9 is The Evil Within 2. Take The Evil Within, expand its world, further limit its resources, add a more coherent story, and you have an excellent sequel to an already excellent survival horror experience. It's one of the generation's most complete horror packages, and while its scares often surpass those of the first, familiarity dampens fears. And for that reason, we give the slight edge to its predecessor. Speaking of,
The predecessor. Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami's return to survival horror came in the 2014 Evil Within, and it didn't disappoint. With roots in Resident Evil, Evil Within thrived off its challenging gameplay, limited resources, inspired world, engaging story, and brilliantly horrific enemy design. The Keeper, Reborn Laura, Zen, and Nguyen, to name a few.
and we're going to quickly move off of that one. We're going to talk about detention now. Quiet and disconcerting, Detention is a slow paced 2D horror game that largely takes place in an abandoned school. This isn't your in your face horror, it's thoughtful, emotional, psychological horror rooted in mid century Taiwanese history. From character design and movement to environmental art and lighting, Detention subtly nails the atmospheric horror of the genre's best game. Now, I have not played this game, but I have seen somebody play this game. Now, unfortunately, I just don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Jack,
Hmm.
but it could have been Mark.
Oh my god. Yeah, of course I get the book to read. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Coming into Resident Evil 7, the most prolific horror franchise in gaming history had lost its way. Gradually shifting towards action heavy gameplay, Resident Evil 6 was a low point for the mainline series, and after a 5-year hiatus, Capcom returned with the series' scariest, most inventive game since Resident Evil 4. For the first time in the series, Resident Evil 7 used the first person perspective, a controversial decision for the historically third person franchise. The decision paid off, however, as Resident Evil 7's new perspective notched up the immersion and therefore the scares, and opened the door to an even more terrifying VR experience. Despite the change in perspective and initial disconnect from the series' other games, Resident Evil 7 proved to be the most Resident Evil game in years, paving the way for this year's exceptional Resident Evil 2 remake and an exciting future for survival horror franchises. I am just now realizing that this article is extremely outdated because they just mentioned that Resident Evil 2's remake just released.
Yeah, it might be a little old.
I will give it this. Resident Evil 7 is like
Yeah,
outside of
so
the first game is one of the two only games where the residents are truly evil.
yes. So for transparency, and I can see it now, I didn't look before. It states that this article was written October 30th of 2019. So this is 5 years out of date. So there's 5 years of games that are not
On
being
this list.
added to this list. But we will move on to no their number 5.
5.
Outlast 2. As with the Evil Within series, Outlast's second outing expanded on the original in scopes and scale. While maintaining what made the original's horror so effective, unmatched disturbing imagery, grotesque enemy design, a murderous cult rooted in religion, fast jump scares, slow psychological scares, and a coherent story to boot, Outlast 2 has a pinch of well crafted terror for every type of horror fan.
I will say Outlast 2, this monster right here in general scared the ever living fuck out of me when I played the game. Resident Evil 2's remake. Capcom followed up RE7 with a masterful remake of Resident Evil 2. An already stellar survival horror game was made better by exponentially improved visuals, better character models, a more threatening version of Mr. X, a more fluid over the shoulder camera angle, and much, much more. 2019 upgrades aside, Resident Evil 2 remains one of the horror's most effective games in terms of building tension. Resources are scarce, sound design is excellent, and the constant threat of Mr. X and his improved stalking ability is surpassed only by that of the next game's antagonist. Fuck this next game. I could only see 2 letters, and I already know what game this is.
Indeed, we're talking about Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation nails both the survival and horror aspects of the genre. It isn't the most consistently scary game of the generation, but at its best, its terror is unmatched by that of any other game from the last 6 years, or in their case, so from like 2013 to 2019. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Beyond this generation, few games have achieved the level of tension-filled gameplay that makes up the majority of Alien Isolation, as the Xenomorph's sharp focus hunting ability leaves little time for respite across its 15 to 20 hour runtime.
In number 2, we have Outlast 1. With Outlast, developer Red Barrels took the found footage movie genre and expertly turned it into a feverish or 5-ish hour interactive nightmare. Outlast gives players nothing in terms of defense. It's a game of cat and mouse, where you're the mouse and the cats are hyper aggressive, disfigured patients at a supposedly abandoned psychiatric hospital. Further, Outlast effectively turns sight into an in game resource. The majority of the hospital is only visible through the green, grainy lens of your camera's night vision, and that camera relies on batteries sparsely scattered throughout the building. When you can see what's chasing you, Outlast is as scary as any game on on this list, when the lights go out, it stands nearly in a league of its own.
And then last but not least, for their list for 2019, we have PT. PT wasn't a full release, and it's no longer available to download. But the playable teaser was nevertheless the scariest video game release this generation. The result of a cross industry, once in a console generation collaboration between acclaimed creators Hideo Kojima, and I apologize for butchering names, and Guillermo del Toro. PT was revealed as a nondescript teaser at Gamescom 2014, followed by an otherwise quiet release on the PlayStation Store. Hours later, the enigma was solved, and PT was revealed to be Silent Hills. Though the code was cracked, the solution wasn't clear. PT became an obsession as players across the internet, Twitter, Reddit, Twitch, YouTube, Neo, GAF, and other forums, attempted to piece together exactly how to reach PT's true ending. Kojima's grand plan paid off for at least a time. PT was downloaded over 1 million times in a month, and it remained at the center of the gaming world for weeks, a massive accomplishment in an industry that largely moves by the day.
All right.
So now you're probably curious. I'm going to quickly run through just the names, not the descriptions, of a list that was written on GameSpot by Darren and Mark. This was September 13th, 29, 24, 2024. Jesus. So this is their best 25 best horror games to play with the lights off in 2024. Are you ready for this quick list? We don't have to do the naming of this one. Number
All right.
1, Alan Wake 2. Number 2, Alien Isolation. These are also not actually numbered. This is just me saying for our own sake. Tooth and Claw Library, Amnesia the Bunker, The Mortuary's Assistant, which I did watch somebody play that one, and that one was terrifying.
Yes.
Um, DayZ, I don't agree with that one.
No, I don't either.
Dead Space 2023, okay.
Agreeable.
Hunt Showdown 1896, it was all right. At least the demo that we played, it could have gotten better since then. Little Nightmares, Outlast Trials. I I wouldn't say that it's horror. Like it's in
It's
the horror
horror. It's
franchise, but like
survival horror. Because just like with the original ones, it's cat and mouse. And it is
yeah.
tense, but I feel like we definitely got desensitized to it during our playthrough. Because
Yeah.
I don't even fear it. I'm just like, how can I beat this as fast as I can?
So this one, they have a scare factor of 9. I just now realized that they have a scare factor in these things. Phasmophobia. Uh Soon we'll get Phasmophobia up and rolling a lot more. Puppet Combos Library, The Complex Expedition, Resident Evil 2 2019, Signalis, Silent Hill 2, and at the time of writing this one, Silent Hill 2 remake wasn't out, so this is actually the 2001 version. Soma, Until Dawn from 2015, Silvio 2 from 2019, The Evil Within 2, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Observation, uh, yeah, The Blackout Club, Lethal Company. I would not say that's a horror game. That one's just kind of like funny.
I don't
Uh,
know. I've watched a few Lethal Company videos that have genuinely made me like jump and be like, oh fuck.
that's fair. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Now, this is not a game I've played
I have.
much.
It it is not horror as much as it is thriller.
That is actually the last game on their list. So,
So I
let's
have my
talk
five. I have my five, but I also went ahead because the list was made in 2019. I added one game, and I want you to do the same. And it could be any game that you could think of, but I want you to add one game that you thought deserved to be on that list
from 2019 or since 2019.
since 2019. Like, just one horror game you think deserves to be on the list that has not come out like within the last 30 days.
Okay.
All right. So, in my top five list, I have them numbered, five being like the bottom of the list, one being like where I think it should be the top of the list.
So should I eliminate one of my five to add this other one that should have been on the list, or
No, we're both going to keep that as an honorable mention,
okay.
but we're going to go through and out of our five, because I'm hoping we have some differences, but I guarantee we'll have some similarities. But we're going to go with five, and we're going to say what we both think for number five.
All right.
David, you go first.
So for number five, I'm gonna actually say Soma.
Ooh.
Of the ones that I had played, um, it's the one that I would say it's scary. Now, truthfully, I've removed a lot of the horror aspects apparently because I had activated easy mode and didn't know for the longest time. So I was like, "Oh yeah, the robots are here, but they're not attacking me." So that's weird. Oops.
Logan does say it has a really beautiful story, and that's why it's like his favorite.
Right.
For my number five, I chose Layer of Fear, Layers of Fear, because
Okay.
I have actually played it, and it has gotten me on a lot of good jump scares, and the story was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was pretty decent.
The story was very decent. It was predictable, but I think especially towards the end of the game, it like ramped up and had a good ending. But I do think it's the bottom of my top five list.
Sure.
For number four, I chose The Evil Within.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, do you want to elaborate why, or just move on?
So, despite what I have said earlier about Evil Within being like my favorite horror game of all time, I am judging my list not just based off of my own experience, but its impact as a whole.
Okay.
And I do feel like, despite the success of Evil Within 1, having Bethesda greenlit a sequel and everything, I do think it's more of a cult classic and has more of a cult following. Because
Gotcha.
it's drawing for people was a psychological horror made by the guy who created Resident Evil and published by Bethesda.
Right. All right. Well, with that being said, number four for me is Prey,
Ooh.
which is also a Bethesda title. Ironically enough. Um, I enjoyed it. I the mimics got me a lot,
The
but
mimics got me a lot too. But it
but there was a certain point while playing that game that it wasn't so much a horror as it was a all right, what are they what are they deciding to hide as now? But it's still like they weren't jumping out as much. And so it was a all right, I gotta avoid this enemy. All right, let me just kind of like hide over here. All right, let's try to take out this guy so that way I can get on to the next portion. So it was scary for a good portion, and then there was just a all right, I gotta get this done.
it I feel the exact same way where at the start of the game it started off as like, oh fuck, mimics. Oh god. And then it slowly transitioned into let's just break all the fucking cups and throw everything to see what transforms into an alien.
Yeah.
Simulator for me.
So moving on to number three, Doki Doki.
Ooh.
And the reason why it's at three is I didn't know it was a horror game at first. So when I had started to play it, I ended up seeing the rest of it just being played because I didn't actually own it. I was like, okay, this is a pretty chill game. And then Sayori started to change a little bit. I'm like, this is taking a bit of a turn. And then the unaliving themselves uh kind of took me out of my element. I'm like, this is okay. All right. And then
You're like,
watching the rest of the
something
gameplay
doesn't feel
and
right.
seeing the rest of the game just kind of unravel. Uh,
David's instinct is this isn't like other VN games. What the fuck's going on here?
well,
I've
I
never
was
been.
not going off of that. I was just like, this is not the direction I thought the game was going to take.
So for
Uh,
my number three, I chose Five Nights at Freddy's.
oh, okay, okay.
And I chose Five Nights at Freddy's because I've sporadically played them. I've played the first one, and then I've played Security Breach, and
Hmm.
but I've seen all of them played, and I do think it deserves to be on there because FNAF just has a huge cultural impact, and I have been
Sure.
a sucker for its cultural impact from buying all the little keychains to owning a couple of shirts, hats. I own a majority of the books. I
Sure.
have the movie.
Mm,
So it's a horror game that's had its cultural impact on me and dug its claws deep, and I think it deserves the number three spot.
mm-hmm.
Number two, though, which is really hard not to put in number one because of the fucking AI for the game, is Alien Isolation. I have not played a game since Outlast 1 that has instilled true fucking horror in me like Alien Isolation. Like, I have not finished that game because of the amount of stress and anxiety it puts in my body of having the xenomorph hunt you down. But that's what I
Right.
love about the game is the AI not only learns from you, but the AI for the xenomorph runs separately from the game.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from the few chances where it's scripted to show up, it's completely randomized,
Mm-hmm.
and it was phenomenal. And as of a couple days ago, or actually I think just yesterday from recording this, the team that made the game has officially announced Alien Isolation 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we are
I don't know
getting
about that one, but
a sequel. And I will go on the fence and say it because I have seen multiple things talking about it. Alien Isolation 2 has been confirmed.
as of 3 days ago.
Yep. And I'm not talking about the little mobile game that continued the story.
No, no, no. It specifically says that it's Alien Isolation 2 is confirmed. So,
So yay.
mhm.
What did you choose as your number two spot?
So my number two is actually Five Nights at Freddy's. And the reason for that is I feel since its release, it has definitely altered the horror video game genre and probably I feel kind of kickstarted it of bringing it back into like the limelight. And it's caused a ton of spin-offs. Sorry, starting to lose my voice. It's caused a lot of spin-offs and like inspirations and fanfics, and it has a massive impact on our culture as we live now. And that's why it's number two for me. Uh Before we get to number one, I'm gonna go through with my honorable mention.
Ooh.
And I encourage you to also do your honorable mention before we reveal our number one, which I'm also suspecting is probably the same number one.
If
Uh
we have the same number one, then for our top three list, our number one is definitively number
yeah,
one if we both chose it.
we'll get there in a second. My honorable mention is actually Still Wakes the Deep. It's a relatively short-ish game, uh, but the story that it had, and the feeling that I had while playing it, like it was a different environment. It was close quarters, and it was taking some elements of, okay, you're back in this area, but now this area is drastically different, and you have to do different actions to get through it. Like, I understand that some games do that as well, but the way that they did it and the way that they told their story, I thoroughly appreciated, and I do strongly believe that it should be at least in the top 25. Uh, so that was my honorable mention.
So, my honorable mention is The Mortuary's Assistant.
That's a fantastic game. I've never played that one.
I have never
I've
played it, but
watched
I
I've
went
watched it played.
into a deep, deep rabbit hole of watching a bunch of different YouTubers go through the game. Because obviously it started off with Mark and Jack and my normal list of people to watch, but I also ended up watching a bunch of people I have no idea who they were because my brain really wanted to unravel every single secret to the game as fast as
There,
I could because I was absolutely fascinated. But as David knows, I don't do possession and demonology games very well, and that game heavily plays into that whole category. And God, was the story actually beautiful on every single ending. Even the bad endings were just really good.
right.
So,
Number
for
one. We're gonna say it at
number
the
one,
same time.
on three,
So one,
one,
two, three, and then go, right?
yes, one, two, three, PT.
PT. Yep.
All right. So, definitively on our top three list, we have PT for the obvious reasons.
It it was probably the pinnacle game that revolutionized, or not well, it revolutionized as
It
well, but
brought
it
back
definitely
horror,
brought back the horror genre for video games. Like, it was there, with Resident Evil, but
fear, and
as they
like a
had
bunch
also
of other
said,
games that
Resident
were.
Evil was kind of moving away from that horror aspect of just going to action RPGs.
So, I would say up until PT, most horror games were horror action because as you just said, Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, and even the spin-off ones in between were all actiony, with Resident Evil 6 being a straight like Michael Bay film of just explosions and car chases, and it went away from what was horror.
Right.
Same thing could be said about Silent Hill. Silent Hill went from psychological horror of like immense tension and atmospheric like dread to games like Downpour and Homecoming, where it's like you have more than enough ammo to get through the situation. Things are just not as scary as they used to be. The atmosphere isn't as pressurized. We had games like Fear, which was originally going to be my honorable mention, and it was one that I was really hoping would have been on the top 25 list that I was going through, but I realized that list was for the 6 years of 20 from 2019 and back 6 years. But Fear definitely deserved to be on the top 25 because that game gave me nightmares. And still,
Sure. It's a
Alma
good game.
creeps into nightmares every once in a while. I will never forget going and walking down the hallway. Oh, hey, look, a ladder. Swoop, little girl. And I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
I have nightmares where I'll walk down a hallway and turn around and she's just standing in the shadows. So that right there explains good horror. to have something
Yeah,
that mentally
it
lasts like
definitely
that.
instills fear for you, but that was a long time ago.
That was a very long time ago. I think Fear is one of those games that's due for a modernization, kind of like with Silent Hill 2 being a 20-year-old game.
Yeah, yeah.
Just saying, Bloober, since you're in the act of
But
remaking shit,
like I would say do a remake but also
a reboot would be better.
reboot because Fear 3 was out it was out there. Fear 2 was really good, but Fear 3
Fear
it
2
was out
did
there.
what Dead Space did and just broke my brain from just trauma.
Yeah.
Because
Uh
you get R worded at the end of the game. Just spoiler alert.
yeah,
The
yeah,
whole game is a build up to be R worded. So that way in the third game you could birth yourself from the first game
yeah.
while playing as the character from the first game. You deliver yourself
Yes. So,
from a
let's
ghost.
let's talk about because you said you wanted to break it down to the top 3. We got number 1 locked down.
We have number 1 lockdown, which is PT. I would
Yes.
say number 2 is locked down as well because out of both of our top fives, we've only had two games that actually were similar, which was our number 1, which made it definitively one, and your number 2 and my number 3. So I do think FNAF deserves to be number 2 on the list,
All right.
which leaves us with number 3.
What were your other 3?
So my other 3 was Alien Isolation, Layers of Fear, and Evil Within.
Okay.
And your 3 were Prey, Soma, and Doki Doki Literature Club.
I will argue Alien Isolation should take number 3 because
Honestly, I will not
you
argue that.
you talking about it brought back a lot of trauma that I had forgotten about.
Emotional damage.
So, yeah, I will say that getting chased down by the xenomorph and not knowing when it was going to attack, uh, that would give it number 3. It does not beat FNAF in my opinion, but I will say it's a close.
All right, so you heard it here from the R&R podcast from the creative minds of Razgriz, the BossFoss, and Ryunn Eldred. Our
3 hours
definitive,
later.
our definitive horror games top 3 list for judging off an IGN article are Silent Hills, the PT playable teaser.
It's just PT. Number 1 is
It's a
just
lot of things.
PT.
It's a lot of things.
It's the playable teaser. It's just PT.
All right, fine. Just PT. At number 2, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. I want to take it a step further. What would you say the best Five Nights at Freddy's was? The scariest.
The scariest?
The scariest. The one that would deserve, if you had to pick the title to be the definitive one, which one would you choose?
I mean, I gotta give it to the original. It wasn't the scariest out of all of the games that have come out, but for me, the original is what defines the entire franchise, and the original helped solidify Five Nights at Freddy's as uh deserving of being where it is. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, it took what the original FNAF had, laid down, and it reinforced it, but it's still the original game's formula that is the driving force of everything.
I would absolutely agree, but I also think a shoe in for second would be FNAF 4.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
okay, so
FNAF
yeah,
FNAF 4 probably got me better with the nightmare animatronics and just like innards little tentacles or whatever. Or not innard, but I think it's the puppet, nightmare puppet.
right,
Because innard isn't introduced till sister location.
correct.
And then with our number 3 spot being Alien Isolation, which is very deserving of its spot, with honorable mentions to both Mortuary Assistant and Still Wakes the Deep. that is our horror list, everybody. So thank you guys so much for listening to this. What took us 3 hours to record and hopefully will not be more than an hour and a half long podcast. I am going to crack down and start editing this so it could be out on Wednesday, the 23rd.
16th.
Oh, 16th. I think next week we should talk about horror movies
Okay.
as it leads up into Halloween. So that way on the 23rd it will be a horror movie one, and then on October 30th we'll just have a Halloween thing and we'll just talk about Halloween in general.
Yeah.
Sounds
We'll have
good?
to talk in a minute, but yeah.
There you guys go. We have somewhat of a scheduled list of things for you guys to look forward to. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening on any of your podcast listening services, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the rock that has a weird aux port that you found in your yard that you don't know what it does, but every time you plug it in, it shines blue and a cow goes missing from the farm down the road from your house. Thank you guys so much. If you watch the video version of this podcast on the Ryunn Eldred YouTube channel, you can find our other podcast, The Drinking Corner, over on the NerdgazmicGoodfellas YouTube channel, or you can find a link to everything down in the description below. Thank you to my co-host, Razgriz the BossFoss, for joining me in this podcast. Make sure to click the in-screen annotations if you're watching the video to be taken to other playlists or other podcast episodes. Hit the bell icon to be notified when videos come out, and we shall see you in next Wednesday's episode. Toodaloo, everybody.
Bye, everybody.